Are you addicted to it's a scam online content? Do you find yourself constantly on the internet searching for the next online scam that somebody's going to expose or put under a microscope and you use that to get entertainment? However, over the past year to 2 years, nothing about your life has improved, has changed, especially in the financial space. If you continue to watch this video, I can kind of show you how you can flip always looking for the next scam as a form of entertainment, and you could turn it into learning how to find scams in the market and learn how to monetize or generate profit for yourself and your group by being able to identify those scams and understanding what direction those particular scams are going to go into. What you're looking at on this particular screen is a screenshot of options plays I made on a particular company called Carvana. You see a 76% return on one leverage play. It's a derivative play. On the other play, you see 321%. I still have more plays on this particular scam. I've identified it. To me, this is a pump and dump scheme. And my goal is probably to pull this year around 30,000 out of this particular series of trades. And if you look at the original trade, just because of issues of capitalization, I wasn't able to make this trade as big as possible. Knowing what I know now, with my experience and understanding, I probably should have put $10,000, $20,000 into this play. And if I would have had the money, I would have done. I was confident enough to put $100,000 into this particular play. And this was when Carvana was trading at around $240. And these are puts that I bought in December going out till March of the next year. And this is what I want to try to get you to show. But you have to decide that I'm tired of watching scams on the internet as a form of entertainment. And I want to go back to watching things on the internet as a way to figure out how to generate profit for myself and my group. So we're going to go ahead and break down this Carvana play. I'm going to show you some of the things that I was looking at. And then you can decide whether or not this is something that you're interested in. This is a skill set that you want to learn, that you want to develop. Because my ability to learn to develop this skill has allowed me to figure out how to take opportunities and turn those into money and turn those into profit and turn those into income streams, as opposed to just hearing about it, being entertained by a person picking everything wrong with it. And then after that, I just go into the next situation, but I don't really benefit from it. And so we're going to go ahead and get into that. So what we're looking at is a company called Carvana. They're a used car dealer. And it was because I was looking at really a company called, I think it was Avis, is how I stumbled onto this particular play. So I wasn't looking for it. I was really looking at Avis, and me looking at Avis and looking at the used car industry is how I stumbled into Carvana. Now, nobody was talking about Carvana. None of the people that are talking about scams on the internet, none of the people that talk about, this person getting caught up for doing this illegally, none of them were talking about this particular play. And one of the reasons that their audience has to understand, one, the markets, they got to understand how to look at companies. They got to understand things of that nature. So it wasn't like a good entertainment piece. When you're thinking about, let me give the audience what they want to hear, this probably wouldn't fit under that category, because you actually got to understand how to look at a company, how it's composed, its business model, things of that nature. You can't just identify a person, right? Even though there are people involved in these plays. But what I'm going to show you is some of the things I was looking at. We're going to make this relatively quick. But what you're looking at on those particular early screenshots, you're looking at almost, I would say almost $20,000 worth of profit after we take the initial investment out. If you're going to make $20,000, let's say in 6 months, right? Outside of what you normally do on a day-to-day basis, but even at what you normally do, how much time are you willing to put in to learn the skills to do it, right? And so that's the kind of questions you want to ask yourself. Because the same way those two plays could have been 20,000, they could have been 120,000, because it really was just dependent upon the amount of capital put in on the front end. The downside of the market helped me a lot in this particular situation. But in my opinion, this company was going to sell off even without the macroeconomic situation because of the way it's structured. We're going to go ahead and go into it. So right now we're looking at a screenshot of Carvana, right? This is its chart over pretty much the past 2 years. And so we see it going up to the $300 mark, really $350, and then selling down off of that. And what you got to understand, if you were paying attention, is during this time it was moving up, the insiders were selling out of the play. So the CEO, his father, a lot of insiders was selling their shares back to the market while this thing was moving up, right? Because that was the best time for them to take profit. And one of the things I try to get a lot of people to understand is that most companies don't IPO for you. They IPO for the insiders. An IPO process is a way for the insiders to become liquid. They need liquidity through the public markets. So let me give an example. If I buy into company XYZ and I'm able to get in as an insider early, and I'm able to buy 30,000 shares or 50,000 shares for $1 a share. So I paid $30,000 to get in. The company IPOs, so let me roll that back a little bit. During the 10-year run up to the IPO, the company valuation starts to multiply. So my equity position at one time was 30,000. It is now 30 million. The problem now I have is if I don't go through the public markets, I have to find a private person or an individual, a group of private individuals that have the liquidity to get me out of my position. That can be difficult because I got to find people that now have $30 million because I want to get out of my position now. But if I can go to the public markets, I can now get out of my position via the public markets, because one thing the public markets do is they allow me to get access to scale. I have literally billions of dollars of capital that I can get access to via the public markets. Often when you see an IPO, it's a liquidity event. It's an exit event. But retail is conditioned to think this is my opportunity to get in. But you got to understand is that these people are utilizing the public markets for liquidity. This whole market is based on liquidity. And I don't want to sidetrack this particular discussion to get people to understand that. So when the liquidity got offered to Carvana insiders, what they did was they sold on the way up. So as other people buying into it, they are selling. Why? Because this is my exit event. This is the reason why I went down this road anyway, was to get a return on my capital and then use the public markets and use this particular scenario that we were in, which really was a pandemic, to exit. Right? Now, it doesn't mean that anytime insiders are selling, that means it's detrimental to the company. Sometimes stock sales are based on what your accountant is telling you. You got to sell for tax obligations. You got certain times that you plan on selling. What we saw in these scenarios was we saw selling to me that was a little bit over the top. And it was because this share price wasn't sustainable, but it was very obscene. So this was the best time to change positions with people in the particular market, right? So that's the first thing that you want to understand. And why was the share price going up so high? A lot of it had to do with the fact that we were in a particular environment to where there was a lot of liquidity in the overall market. And as a result, share prices started to go up because people were buying cars at prices they probably normally wouldn't buy at, but the liquidity actually existed. Next slide. You got to understand the structure of the business. Where a lot of people struggle in trying to identify these plays, and something that I've been very good at, is understanding the structure of the actual business, right? And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. So when they're looking at a business, they don't know how the business actually makes money. And it's documented how they actually make money. So what they tell you how they make money is not relevant to the documentation. And when you look at a company like Carvana, it's really part of a family of businesses based around used cars. And so you got an original business called Drive Time. Really, you got an original business called Ugly Duckling, which turned into Drive Time, which then also turned into Carvana / Drive Time. And then you added another company called Bridgecrest, which provides the financing. So what a lot of people are confused is that when they're going to a car dealership or they're going to a used car dealer, they think the business is selling cars. The business may be getting financing for people that want to buy cars. But when you don't understand the securitization market, you think, well, their business is selling me a car, but maybe their business is selling you a loan. And we use the car to get you into the loan. So if my business is really selling you a loan and I use the car to get you into the loan, my business model is really different than an independent used car dealer that goes to auto auction. And then he tries to buy the car at auto auction at a lower price than what he would sell it to a particular buyer. That's a different business model. He may not have the financing opportunities that somebody like Carvana may provide, because why? he doesn't have the financing arm attached to his business. So where a lot of people struggle is that they can't see the business model. Therefore, because they can't see the business model, they may have to buy into mythology about what the business model actually is. And I didn't have that issue, because one of the things that I've been fortunate with in this market is I'm fortunate to actually see the business model, right? And it's a documentation. So I don't have to make it up. I don't have to guess. I don't have to figure out what people on YouTube want to hear. It's actually in their documents. So when I want to understand how they actually make money, I just go and look at their documents, and their documents will explain to you that's how they actually make money in the market. So that's something that a lot of people are missing out on, right? Let's go to the next slide. So one of the reasons why the share price went up is because used car prices went really, really high during the pandemic. And so that's what got me, brought my attention to Avis, because Avis historically before the pandemic was trading at around $50. And I want to say it just kept going up, and it kept going up, and it kept going up. And I couldn't figure out why. It's because there was a shortage on cars overall, which meant there was a shortage on used cars, but people kept buying the cars. Then it got to a point where people saying, well, it's not a good idea to buy cars, but because there was so much liquidity in the economy and there was a shortage on cars and people still wanted cars, if they could get financing, they would still buy cars. So even though used cars had gone up 26%, there still was a market for cars, right? Another slide. Some used car vehicles now cost more than the original sticker price. So what we call is that the used car game had begotten, really the car game had begotten so robust, used cars now were going higher than what new cars are going for, because the car market was just obscene. But as long as people could get financing, they didn't care. So a company like Carvana, which fundamentally is not a good operating company, we're going to kind of show you some evidence of that. Their share price kept going up because people were optimistic about the used car market, but they were optimistic about it because of a situation. We know the pandemic wasn't going to last forever. We know the regulations around the pandemic were not going to last forever. We know the supply chain issues are not going to last forever. Therefore, if we believe that the overwhelming justification or the overwhelming reason why the share price of this particular company is going up is because of how people are responding to the pandemic, and we know that the pandemic is not going to last forever, then what is going to continue to support this particular price once we're no longer in this particular environment? So then why would I buy at 350? Why would I buy at 300? Because if I'm buying at 300 or 350, I have to believe that the price is going to be greater than that 5 years down the road. So what would justify the price being 500 in 5 years? And then if I can't come with that answer, then why am I buying at that particular price? But they were able to get people to exchange places with them at these extremely, to me, inflated prices. Let's go to the next slide. So we also get people that are quote unquote insiders or experts in this particular space, and they were also buying into Carvana. And what I want you to understand, and we're going to kind of talk about this later, this is a very sophisticated operation, right? This is not done by people that aren't savvy, and we're going to talk about that. This type of scheme, the way it's constructed, is very sophisticated. And really big cons are constructed very well. They're very intricate in their construction. So that's why the average person can't wrap their head around it, because they can't see the pieces, right? And they use a lot of different things to get people to buy into it. And they do bring in people that you would think would know better. And so because the people that you would think would know better are in these deals, the average person thinks, well, it got to be a good deal, because the people that I've been programmed to think in society would know better, they're also in these deals. So you saw the same thing with, what's the guy's name that ran the big SEC scam with the investors? Well, first, he had a position in the SEC. So he had all the credentials, he had all the accreditations. Then he attracted money from people that were also very wealthy. And you would think those people would have the team around them to see the fact that this was a scam. But they couldn't, because the way these large things work is they're able to convince people that you think would know better.